Yes, my friends, here we are with Kate King here on the Tyler Hill podcast. Welcome back. And we were just talking off mic about Minnesota, where so many of my roots are, my family,
Mm.
my dad, all of that. So
Oh, wow.
that's really fun. Always so cool to find
Mm,
those connections you have with all of humanity when you
mm.
just even have a small little conversation. So I've
Yes.
already just, even off mic, we've connected. We're so excited. I'm so excited to have you here, Kate King. Welcome to the Tyler Hill podcast.
Thank you. It's a joy. I'm grateful to be here.
So you said, as I just mentioned, you are from Minnesota.
Yeah.
You have an impending winter coming along. Is that exciting for somebody like you up there in the North Midwest? Is that come with despair? How do we feel about the impending Minnesotan winter?
You know, fun question. I think I'm just so used to it, used to the transition and the rhythm. Like, I love the romance, if you will, of curling up with a warm cup of something by a fire. Um, But I forget that it's like an option to not have snow and for it to be painful to go outside. Like, is this not how everybody does life?
Yes. Oh, that's so fun.
Uh, but yeah.
Yeah, what's funny is I've interviewed a couple people that have been from Arizona over the last couple weeks and to
Yeah.
hear their lifestyle. I'm in Colorado, which has some snow and some good winter. We definitely get all four seasons here in Colorado.
Yeah.
But that Minnesotan lifestyle sounds way more appealing to me than the Arizona crazy hundreds and hundreds of degrees. So
Yes.
I get that. I'm a four on the Enneagram, and so uh,
Same. How are
oh,
there two uniquenesses in
I
one
know
space?
it's not possible.
It's not possible.
The moodiness of me just curl up in the warmth with the heater on and reading a book, there's just nothing like it.
Yes, I'm
Great.
with you.
Oh, this is so fun. Kate, let's say this first of all, before we get into the teaching and all of your wisdom, and we'll talk about spiritual direction and Jesus energy. Let's say you had a couple $100. You had a
Fun.
weekend to yourself.
Yep.
What is fun for you? What makes you come alive?
Hmm.
What makes Kate King in terms of sparking joy and wonder fun? What would you do with a little bit of money, a little bit of time just to bring some life to you?
I love this question. Well, I would wake up early and I would do my prayer devotional and read and sit in silence for as long as I could stand it. And then I would write for
Mm.
as long as I could, hoping that my entire family sleeps in. I love them dearly, but I get grumpy if they wake up when I'm in silence because I'm very spiritual like that.
Of course.
And then I think I would exercise and I would drink and eat as many superfoods as possible. And then go maybe on a bike ride with my kids. Like,
Mhm.
do I have the whole day? This is
Sure.
amazing.
I just want to hear what makes you come alive. This sounds awesome.
Yes, this is so great. I'm going there in my head and I'm enjoying myself. Um, and at some point, my husband and I would go on a date and we would say funny things to each other and just laugh and then just like sit and be in my dog's presence, I think, for the remainder of the day. I'm obsessed with my dogs.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Tell me about
They,
the
ha yes, they're Havanese. Xander, you will never see him without a bow tie. And Charlie June always wears a bow. And she actually, so Charlie June is the name. If we were to have another girl,
Mhm.
that would have been our
Mhm.
daughter's name.
Yep.
But we didn't. And so we have a dog named Charlie June.
I love that.
Yeah,
Like my mind goes to, I don't know, I'm a spiritual director, so I get to over spiritualize things, but
love
it
that.
makes me think of Richard Rohr always talking about his dog and the ways in which his
Yes,
dog
yes.
is just such a teacher and a companion and is Christ to him so much.
Yes.
You definitely went to the dogs as if I just want to be in my dog's presence. Tell
Yep.
me what that what does that actually do for you? What is the space and the heart behind that?
Mm,
And what do they mean to you, maybe on a deeper level than just being a companion, or maybe that is the deeper level. But yeah, tell me a little bit more about the dogs and how
that's
they
so sweet. That's so sweet. I just like would never have anticipated that question, and just thinking about it makes my eyes water. Um, and wow, that's so lovely. Honestly, like I just feel so, speaking of force, and like walking around the world, never been welcomed or seen. But in their presence, like I feel seen. I feel welcomed. I feel for some reason mercy comes to mind, and it's always one of those pieces of our creator that I feel like I don't know enough about, and I want to like pinpoint it. And there's just this like exchange of love that somehow feels like mercy when I'm with them, that I just enjoy life.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm. They show mercy. It sounds like you are seen.
yeah.
I wonder what does that do to you to be fully seen in that regard? Like why does that matter so much to us in regards of just finding so much life? Again, the dog isn't teaching, it's not
Mm,
talking, it's not, it just sees you. It makes me think of our work in spiritual direction, which we'll get into. Why is it to you, Kate, so important to be seen in that way? And how is
mm,
that than just like, I don't know, getting likes on Instagram or
mm.
seen for just out and about because our cool outfit or something? Like, what does it mean to be seen in that way, in the way your dog would see you, or maybe a great companion would see you?
Wow. Well, first of all, I just have to pause and say, like, your question asking and your interview style, I'm just like struck by. Like, I feel a little out of body. Um, just the way you like, you're such a spiritual director, like, hold the presence of God and like hone in on it. That is such a gift, Tyler. And I just want to like speak that out loud for a second and say, like, it feels like a gift to me to receive that gift of yours.
Thank you.
And also, I want to like, it's new to me to just experience trying to not prepare what I'm gonna say and like let something flow.
Yeah.
So this feels like a challenge that I'm attempting to rise to. So thank you for your grace.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. So speaking of, so what were we saying about my what does that mean to me to actually be seen? Oh my goodness. It feels like letting my shoulders fall down and back. It feels like letting myself dance in my living room and like be goofy and like let myself laugh. And um, it just feels like letting every restraint and holding back go,
Yes.
and just the gift of like being myself. And with that, like when I do that, like why I love that so much is I feel like when I'm with my family, like we just the gift of everyone being themselves at the same time is like all I ever want.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going out on a limb to say, for many of us that grew up in a Christian environment or Christian education,
Yeah.
and I don't know how you grew up, but like
Yeah.
that usually is something we have to learn how to do. We have to learn
Mm-hmm.
how to embrace our goofiness, our wonder, our creativity, to be able to just dance without abandon. That's usually not a foundational piece to the spirituality that many of us grow up with. And again, as spiritual directors, we definitely walk through that with many people. How to be yourself, how to embody ourselves, how to be seen freely and fully ourselves, the way our dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
What was that journey like for you? or is that journey like for you? Maybe you could let us in a little bit to where you came from to where you are now in regards to being more recklessly and freely and fully yourself
Mm,
in your
mm-hmm,
body, in your femininity, in your
mm-hmm.
spirituality.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's a couple components to that. I did grow up Christian in a Lutheran church, and there was always an element of going to church like I was fighting a part of myself. Like I did always just feel weird and maybe a little out of place. And I remember I was the first one in my family to not go through confirmation because I was like, why do I need this class to prove my connection with God? And like I should be able to receive, and just there was a part of me that was always like kind of an instigator in that regard, if that's the right word. Um, but also, like, along with that, I grew up as a dancer
Hmm.
and I loved performing more than anything. Like, have always felt such a connection with God, like on stage and performing. And then as like, early 30s, a part of me, like, began to judge that performer part of myself. Um, like, because I was getting in touch with more like my shadow side, and like these like parts of me that I think because along with performance, I wanted to like perform and always be seen as kind, and I was like afraid to show up as anything other than like happy or kind and um yeah, like afraid for that shadow side to come out. So I had to like live in my shadow for a while and be okay with that, if that makes sense. Like, be okay in those like deep, dark spaces and really like live in that and feel loved in that and feel loved and like this kind of, um, I just think of, I read, learning to walk in the dark at that point in my life, Barbara Brown Taylor, very important to me. Um, but so now, kind of coming full circle, I'm like trying to hold both of these spaces of like, happiness is good and beautiful. Joy is beautiful. And so is like the shadow side. And so it's also okay to perform in a way. Like it's hard to explain, but like I'm not judging myself for
Yes.
dancing anymore and like being happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a really an interesting journey I went through
Yeah.
as it relates to getting tattooed. And
Mm.
as a kid and kind of struggling with abandonment issues and attention stuff. And
Yeah.
my mom was sick for my whole life, and so she got
Hmm.
a lot of the attention. And my dad was a pastor, and so the people in the church got a lot of attention. And I think when I was younger, I would admire these punk artists, and they were so tattooed and
Hmm.
get a lot of attention. And so what was interesting is I started getting tattooed, and as I started to do my internal work, I really began to realize how some of that was not honest expression, which again, as a four, is a big deal, right? Like
Mm.
expressing myself,
Yeah.
but also some of it was manipulative. And as I'm just going to do this so I can be interesting or cool.
Yeah.
But what was so interesting about that, Kate, was that then I rebelled against that and I stopped getting tattooed. I stopped wearing punk shirts.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, like in that reaction, my true self also went dormant.
Mm.
And one of the most liberating things for me recently has been, okay, I can get tattooed and express myself and even get attention for how I dress or how
Mm.
I express myself, but it can be done from a different place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and so I've been getting tattooed again and it's been so liberating in that regard.
Mm, yes.
Which I think very often, for what it's worth, it's like I think we often tend to get tempted just one half of 1 degree beyond our true self because of that overreaction.
Mm,
Well, if the
yeah,
dancing was
yeah.
bad, then I'm going to stop dancing entirely.
Yes. Yes, yes.
And we abandon these really, really good things
Yes.
when it's like, okay, really, we actually are so close almost
Mm,
always to our truest self.
Yes.
right? And
Yes. Thank you so much for pulling that out. That's exactly where I was going. I'm like, where am I going with this?
could you share
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yes, thank
could you
you.
share a little bit more as we're talking about this, the shadow as you understand it and as
Mm,
you learned to integrate that into your work to maybe let our listeners in, maybe they don't understand shadow work or what the shadow is when you mentioned living in the shadow. How would you
yeah.
describe that as that's pertained to your story and your work?
Whew. That's a really good question, and one that I haven't thought about recently. How has that helped me? Hopefully you can edit out all my long silences and my pauses. Or if not, we can just sit in silence
It all
together.
belongs.
It all belongs.
Like, what did it mean
That's a
to live
good
in your
question.
shadow? Like you said that.
Yeah, right. I know
Yeah.
as I said that, I was like, what do I mean by this? Um, yeah, it makes me want to pull up my the Enneagram number and like what the unhealthy side of four is. But that was like an original introduction
Yeah.
to learning about my shadow was like, oh wow, I really do like live in this kind of depressive state sometimes, or and that's part of like four, right? It's
Mhm.
been a little while.
Yes.
Or like get really internally, overly internally focused. Um, but that was a necessary part of my walk with God was to find and feel loved in, because it was also during a time of postpartum anxiety and depression. And one of my teachers also calls it nutrient depletion, which it's not always the case, but it was for me. Um, I needed to be seen and loved in this like deeply anxious, depressed, down space. I needed to be welcomed in that by God and by my husband and by my family to like see compassion there and rebirth from that space. Um, and then, as we were saying, then it helped. Yeah, it just like helped me hold everything in a more holistic way. My spiritual director often says, I am the space, my body is the space that can hold all of it, right? God and I together. Um, so yeah, I think I just needed to be loved in that space. When I grew up, I think I grew up in a quite positive and encouraging person, and that's how I always knew myself. And it was like I needed to get to know myself in a different way.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes. That the what some would seem to be the darker or the more difficult or
Yeah,
depressive or nutrient lacking, whether
yeah,
physical or spiritual space,
true. Yeah,
are not to be abandoned or even run away from, but are to
yes,
be held because it makes up the whole of who we are.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes,
That we don't come home to ourself if we don't learn to integrate the shadow rather than just abandon it and run away from it.
yes. And I think it's given me the capacity on a day-to-day basis now, like when I go to judge someone, like my husband, for example, for being a certain way, it's become the judgments more deeply become an invitation to examine what's going on internally. Like that's like the daily shadow work. At least that's how I think of it.
For sure.
Maybe that's not like technically Jungian psychology and don't take my word for it, but
No.
that's how I practice.
Yeah, no, I feel like I hear that often is the thing
Okay, yeah.
that we often dislike about a person across the aisle or on the
Yes.
is usually a version of something in ourself that needs tending to.
Yes.
The fundamental person on the other side of the aisle that makes us so angry is probably because we host still some fundamentalism in our own self.
Yep.
We don't like that about ourselves, but we don't
Yes.
want to hate ourselves. So instead
Yep.
of trying to hate the fundamentalist on
Oh.
Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't, and that's where it's like, okay, I need to learn how to love the fundamentalist in my
Yes.
own, so
Yep.
that I can then learn to transcend that over time.
Yes.
But
That's the daily releasing of chains,
yeah,
right? Like that's freedom. That's joy. Yes.
deep work
I
like
love
this,
that.
Kate, doesn't happen all on its own. Um, we often need friends and a companion. Um, you are a spiritual director, as am I, and that's probably where we got connected on the internet to some degree.
Mhm.
Um, Let us into that world a little bit as you understand it. What does it mean to be a spiritual director? How has spiritual directed direction impacted your life? And
Mhm.
maybe even take that for a few minutes into how do you practice spiritual direction? And yeah, I would love to hear it both, like as a human being, how it's impacted you, and as a
Yes.
professional, what spiritual direction is like.
Yes, it changed everything for me. I was at a point in my faith where I was a kids ministry leader, and internally I felt like everything I knew about God was falling away and was falling through my hands, and I no longer knew if God was good or like trusted these things that I had believed all my life. And I we went on a retreat as women in our church, and there was an opportunity to meet with a spiritual director. And I met with her and just broke down. And I said, how can, the common question of how can God let all of these horrible things happen in the world? And just poured out my every complaint about God, my every fear about God. And I'll never forget, she just looked me in the eyes and said, I see Jesus in you. And lots of other things. But for some reason that hit me. And I'll just never forget that moment of Jesus being with me and inside of me and in my actual body in all of these questions and things that are were going on in my life. And we met for the next 7+ years, and she continues to be my teacher today in a different way than we originally began. Um, but she has just taught me over the years to find um, Christ with me and hold that space dear. And it is like, as you know, like such slow work. I'm like, how is this working? How is this doing anything? But over time, like I felt like she, like this mysterious way of holding this mirror for me and holding this space, I felt there was one day in particular where I remember we were sitting in prayer, and this probably sounds super weird, but we were in prayer and I felt this like kind of blue light in my, I don't know if it's my eye, third eye, my heart, like somewhere in between. And I felt this like immense peace through my body and through my being. And slowly from then on, I'm like, oh, I know what people say now when they talk about living from their true self or like finding heaven within. Like it's just so beautiful. And something like, oh, I want to keep doing that. That's really lovely. And in terms of spiritual direction, like I'm a learning junkie in terms of practicing it. And I studied spiritual direction, and I honestly find that, and I love getting certifications and just constantly learning from as many people as I can. And in terms of practicing spiritual direction, like right now, my three babies are my bosses and my full-time focus. And my my passion is having conversations with people about God. And so I find that like right now, the main way that I'm using spiritual direction is in conversations with people on my podcast in terms of like, it's not actual spiritual direction, but just like listening for the spirit. And I feel like I listen for the spirit with my kids. And um, there will be a day where I meet with more people in like a formal
Mhm.
setting, but it is, I'm finding like for me, am I rambling? I'm kind of
This is great. Keep going.
rambling.
There's space for you to ramble, Kate.
My favorite thing, I'll say this about spiritual direction training and what was really revealed to me was the way that God invites us to be a mirror
Mhm.
for the ones that we're with. And how compassionate that can feel and how peaceful that can feel. And so right now, I feel like my challenge in practice for being a spiritual director is to try to do that in my relationship with my family until like I have more capacity to meet with more people one on one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that.
Talk to me a little bit about listening for the spirit,
Hmm.
maybe even more specifically with your kids. Okay, I
Yeah.
listen for the spirit in my kids. What, how do you notice it in your kids? Where does that show up? And how does that impact you? Like, okay, yes, I'm looking for it. I hear it. Does that impact how you parent? Does that impact just how your soul feels when they're throwing mac and cheese against the wall? Like how does that integrate into like your practical experience as a mother?
Yes. So my oldest is now a sophomore in high school, and then I have a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old. And it has dramatically changed as they've continued to grow. And I think in terms of like actually listening for the spirit, like I love my favorite thing to do is when we are all home and there's like miraculously time for us to have dinner together to practice the examen and say, when did you feel God's presence with you or like an absence of God or when did you feel life? When did you feel something life draining? And to try to practice that so we can like come more and more alive together as a family and like lean into that. That's my favorite thing about that practice is the way it and once we notice life, we are invited into more life and it's like this gorgeous snowball effect. But honestly, I think it's been a bit more mysterious as of lately, and especially as my oldest has entered high school. A lot more like internal triggering has been showing up in terms of like, oh, okay, wow, I am really right now being invited into, like, for example, if there's something that it feels like initially is about her, like, and without giving like too many specifics, but if there's, like in every growing coming of age, like there's things with like feeling a part of community and welcomed or left out. And how it can like raise this part of me that is more like, and I want to fix it or I want to solve it or I want to tell her how to feel. It's more deeply inviting me to like revisit a memory when I was 14 or 15 and felt like everybody left me and no longer wanted to be my friend, or I felt weird or strange, or I felt, it's like, and then as I am invited to sit in silence with God or my spiritual director, of like, whoa, this is moving in me right now. Like, why am I so triggered? And to like find the way to love that part of myself and re-offer something that I didn't have internally at that time of my life. And then try to, like, I think my practice with God right now is to try to let that that compassion that I offered myself, my younger self, extend out for me and pray that she feels that,
Mhm.
like inner welcoming from me instead of telling her how to feel,
Yep.
you
Oh,
know?
yo, that is so good. You know, I say that first of all, I don't want to keep digging in, but we moved my son, he's just in first grade.
Mm-hmm.
But we moved schools and he's a pretty like go get him kid. I mean, he's very magnetic.
Mm.
Kids love him, like always, whatever. He's
Yes.
very tender and
Yes.
has this very hospitable, nurturing spirit, very
Mm.
feminine in that way, and very mothery. And
Mm.
but we switched schools, and he was having a hard time making friends, where he was by far the most popular kid at his other school.
Mm-hmm.
And we went 5 and 6 and 7 days. No, I played by myself at recess, and that was so tough. And I think, and there was a moment where I sensed his anxiety in me trying to coach him on how to like connect with other kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and there was a day, 6 or 7 days into it, where I was like, I'm making this shit worse.
Mm.
Like and again, it's projected as love,
Right.
but
Yep.
as what you're saying here is, okay, if I am awake in this moment,
Yes.
what is actually coming out of here is still some of my own wounding that needs tending to.
Yes.
And that if we are to be attentive to the spirit, say in
Mm.
conversations with our partners or our
Yes.
kids, a lot of the times what we're projecting to them or outward has so much more to do with what's going on inside rather than my kid not making friends or my wife not doing the dishes the way I think it should be done or whatever.
Yes.
It has so much more to do with me.
Yes.
Yes. And so to be attentive to the spirit might not just be about this cool spiritual whatever I'm going to tell my kid, as much as it might be, all right, God, what are you doing inside of me here at
Mm-hmm.
the moment?
Yes. Because they can feel it. And it's almost like everything that comes up in our family is like just such a, it's a teacher to us, you know? And it just, everything. And I think that, like, just as you're saying that, I'm like, that's been the biggest shift in my life is just seeing everything as compassion, you know, like things that come, things that arise. And I should say she has great friends
Yeah.
and a lovely community. And it's like, like just all my own internal anxieties and fears of everything's gonna hit the fan.
Yeah.
What did I
Yeah. Yeah.
do,
Help me in that I'm doing this podcast for myself in a lot of ways, but also so many people I meet with work through this as well. Even having kids that are a little bit older, more in that
Yeah.
teenage years and things. So many of us who have tapped into a different expression of our spirituality, a
Yeah.
more contemplative, a more mystical leaning, um, kind spirituality. So many people I meet with, and I struggle with this as well, is that I want to give my kids a healthy spirituality.
Mm.
But I've also worked very hard to undo so much of the spirituality that I was given that was harmful, that didn't cultivate compassion in me. And all the work I've had to do, for example, in spiritual direction and stuff, is
Yeah.
undoing some of these
Yes.
fundamental things.
Yes.
Myself, along with myriads of my clients, are always asking, how do I do this? How do I
Mm.
like, all right, I'm not exactly excited about just memorizing Bible verses for the sake of doing it because that didn't help when my mom died.
Yeah.
How have you practiced cultivating a spiritual life in your family for your kids as you've gone through the healing journeys that you have as a spiritual director, leaning into a more expansive spirituality? What advice would you give young parents like me, and how have you learned to, give the gift of that spirituality to your kiddos?
Mm. I'm sorry about your mom, Tyler.
Thank you.
Um, I like want to ask you so many questions about that, but I want to answer your question.
You good.
Yeah, honestly, it's a question that I am in the midst of trying to answer, and try to ask myself every day. I, yeah, it's interesting. Okay, well, every day on the way to school, and not to toot my own horn, but this is something I'm proud of. I tell my kids like what I love in that, what do I love about them, and like what I see in them. And for some reason, that's just what's coming to mind right now. Like, just, and maybe again, it's like going back to my spiritual director, it's like how I see Jesus shining through them. That feels like a foundation. And I often say, like, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his or her face upon, like, I rotate between his and her.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, and the practice of examen, I actually have behind me the Sleeping with Bread book.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with that one? Oh, it's so beautiful. It's just talks about the examen and practicing. Is it examine? Examine? Like I feel like I always
I, I say different ways too.
And in that book, they talk about how practicing noticing the presence of God,
Hmm.
it it strengthens our ability to see God as good, um, and as truthfully loving and compassionate, because that was one of the big, and I should say, like, we are in between churches right now. Right now, church is still, I was a kids ministry leader for a while. We had a beautiful small community and our pastors left, and we're trying to figure out what that looks like. We just had this conversation again over the weekend, and my daughter is in a space where she's like finding her own path and what works for her, and has a lovely small group where she goes and talks to people. So I guess the answer is I just am trying to hold that question in front of me every day,
Yeah.
and try to like watch the language I use and try to ask as many questions as possible and have the space for questions to be asked and for uncertainty to be explored. And
So
yeah.
what is that like for you, Kate, when in and especially in Western spirituality,
Hmm.
the pressure we would feel as parents, this expectation to have all the answers, to
Mm.
be able to tell them what to believe or how to exist. How have you learned, or what does it look like to not hold certainty as God, to
Hmm.
allow the space for some of that fluidity in your life? How have you learned to do that? How has that been helpful in your own life and especially in your parenting?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, I went through um, a time where, years of questioning my faith. And a lot of that was honestly started with like I felt the fragility of the deep love for my children and couldn't imagine ever losing them. And thinking of all the parents that have like just broke me. And I had to really wrestle with like, God, how can there be a good God when that happens? And I I read the most beautiful book called Lord Willing, and it was written by a mother who wrestled with the question of her son died of cancer, and she was exploring God's role in it all. incredibly transformative, life-changing book for me, along with Greg Boyd's book Cross Vision, Rachel Held Evans inspired.
Mm.
And I remember thinking just so angry with God, right? Heartbroken at the pain in the world. And I remember just like longing to see God face to face. And that's what like pulled me through. There's so many people in the Bible that saw God face to face, right? And I was like, I am going to. Come hell or high, I want to see God face to face, and that's just what pulled me through that time of questioning and uncertainty. And I, f- I mean, God only knows if I found that, but I feel like I did in silence and prayer and quiet and contemplation. And after just years of pursuing that. So honestly, I think it's just like a continual holding, like being willing to hold the uncertainty. And like I think for so long I was like, okay, these beliefs are no longer working in my head, like just repeating them over and over. And I let them kind of fall and found like fell for a little while and then found like, oh, like belief holds me. I don't have to hold onto all of these right thoughts. I let go and am held in
Mm.
total belief, like this mysterious substance.
It's almost like there's this place where if we are holding on, if we are entirely certain about everything,
Yeah.
there is no need for belief.
Yeah.
There is no need to be held by the divine because we're holding
Yeah.
on to it all.
Yeah.
And so, if I heard you correctly, there was this space or this moment where you were able to allow God
Hmm.
to hold you because you were uncertain. It actually was the uncertainty in and of itself that allowed you to be held.
Yeah. You're right. Yep.
In which case, with our kids,
Yes.
allowing there to not be an answer for everything
Yes. Yes.
allows them to be held in mystery.
Yes. Oh, yes.
It's interesting.
Yes.
My son he's really smart and he does carry a lot of anxiety about getting his answers right and things
Yeah.
where I would never care. I never cared about school or answers or anything. And it's been really hard for me to just try and force him to like I'm trying not to force him obviously, but like dude, it's okay. You don't have to have, and yet he is clinging to them so. And I'm just really trying to learn to say, okay, dude, like
Mm.
you're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
You don't get this answer right. Like your teacher isn't gonna be mad. Mom
Mm.
and dad aren't mad at you, and trying to foster his passion for math and all of these things while still holding this space for some uncertainty.
Yes.
A really interesting practice for me.
Mm.
Um, so then let me push on that just a little bit for us in our spiritual journeys here.
Yeah.
Okay, if we're just uncertain and held, do you believe anything? Like what does that mean for us as like having a relationship with the divine if it's all just so ethereal and mysterious?
Mm-hmm.
And you use the term Jesus energy. If it's
Mm-hmm.
all just this ethereal
Mm-hmm.
energy in and around, then what even is what are we even doing here, Kate?
Yeah, that's a good question. I love that. Yeah, and that is something like I think for a time I've had to let go of my beliefs, and now I think I am like kind of building them back up. And I am finding the first thing that comes to mind when you say that is like trying to watch my thoughts, watch what's actually going through my head in any given moment of the day, because our thoughts become our beliefs, right? So I could say I believe something all day long, but if my train of thoughts is saying something entirely different, is that true? So I think I'm trying to examine what my beliefs are, what my thoughts are, rather, and align them with this mystery, right? And it does it does come from a mysterious place. But honestly, I think that's where like reading really good mystics, like my favorite, really good authors, that's where that comes into play for me. And sifting through, okay, how does this resonate in my being? Like this I'm thinking of Carl McColman. His book, The Big Book of Christian Mysticism, was a huge, like, I felt like I was coming home, and reading that book. And um, I believe God is, like, I know God is good.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, and so I think more so now, like, the things that I would like label beliefs, it's like, no, it's a knowing.
Yes.
It's a knowing because I feel it resonate in my body. I feel it align with my thoughts in a good moment, and then it's like that's what I want to be
So
projecting outward. Yeah.
the difference then being, this is something I know intellectually in my head
Uh-huh.
and a deeply embodied knowing.
Deeply embodied knowing.
Having
Yes.
a belief that is embodied as a knowing is very different than to have an intellectual belief.
Yes.
Tell me a little
Yeah.
more about what embodied knowing is or what that feels like, or how does somebody even get to that place? How does somebody embody a knowing? How is it
Mm.
in my head?
Mm. I want to know what you believe too. Like, tell me.
You can
But
ask me. That's fine.
yeah, yeah, what do you believe? Or like right now? Yeah, what are your beliefs right now?
I mean, I think the most important belief for me, I think there's two. I mean, the thing that comes to mind, Kate, for me is like Richard Rohr's saying that we can't think ourselves into new ways of living,
Yes.
to live ourselves into new ways of thinking.
Yes.
I think for me,
Oh,
an embodied belief is something that happens by way of my experience.
yes. Yep.
So I don't think you could teach me that God is good, actually.
You're right.
I think I could read it a million times and I could sing 1,000 songs about it. But until
Right.
I've allowed myself to experience it,
Yes.
I
Yes.
actually believe it. So I think an
Yes.
example like this would be, um, okay, for example, in our vows with my wife and I, we said in sickness and in health.
Yes.
I don't think those vows were true until we got sick.
Mm.
So like when I got depressed and I had been sleeping in my bed for 8 days, I didn't get out of bed for 8 days. My
Yeah.
body completely turned off. And my wife would bring me water and she walked me to the bathroom.
Mm.
And then I woke up
Wow.
every week and,
Wow.
and then we started going to therapy, whatever. And I started getting,
Yeah.
that's when that vow became true.
Yes.
Because we lived it. Or then
Yes.
during her postpartum,
Yes.
after our daughter was born, our second kid, which for us was wildly transformative.
Yes.
And I mean, incredibly hard. I mean, we had our daughter, she went back to work, got laid off, and then the postpartum really reared its head.
Yeah.
And then I stuck with her.
Yeah.
She went off to where she went to, and we did our breath work in the morning and
Wow.
mom and dad for a little
Wow.
while.
That's
That's
beautiful.
that is when in sickness and in health actually became true.
Yes.
Because it was lived, it was a lived experience.
Yes.
And so for me, I would say we begin to believe these things as we live them.
Yes.
I think for me, my belief that matters more than anything is one of inherent goodness and inherent belovedness.
Yep, yep, yep.
I think the thing that I'm always working to believe is that my starting place is good.
Yes.
That my starting place, that I was born beloved and I still am beloved. So then
Yes.
my spiritual work is one of just remembering. It's not
Yep.
like manufacturing. And
Yes.
um, so that in the womb I was beloved, and then
Yes.
I'm always trying to be born again every day. Remember
Yeah.
what it was like in the womb.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think for me, my biggest belief, or I think my most foundational belief, is that my story
Mm.
starts in belovedness.
Mm.
And that when I'm standing in my belovedness, I have nothing to prove,
Mm.
nothing to fear, nothing to,
Yeah.
I just am.
Yeah.
So I think belovedness being my
Mm.
starting point is my belief, which for what it's worth, Kate, is a
Mm.
lived experience.
Yeah.
I would suggest, and here we are getting crazy, but like, um, I believe belovedness was first known in the womb,
Mm.
which is not an intellectual knowing.
Yeah.
It is only so if belovedness is nothing to prove, lose, fear, or gain,
Yes.
first place we experience that is in the womb. Like there's
Yeah.
no corporate ladders, there's no proving you don't own anything. You're safe, you have all that you need, which
Yes.
if we want to get real spicy, I think the Garden of Eden is a metaphor for the womb. And
Yes.
because that's all there was, nothing, they had everything they needed.
Yes.
They were naked,
Yep.
they were fully themselves.
Yes.
I think that's what makes the incarnation so gorgeous, is that
Yes.
Jesus experienced this vulnerable knowing of belovedness.
Yes.
To say it's not intellectual.
Yes.
And I think all throughout our life, the farther we get away from the womb, we're always trying to recreate that through
Mm.
all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
And when we come back to the true self, we're new.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't have to prove anything. We just are the way we were created to be. We're dancing in the living room with our family,
Yes.
very womb-like, and that's what
Yes.
we're trying to recreate. Um,
Yeah.
and so I'm trying to guide my clients. I'm trying to guide myself. I'm trying to guide my family always back to childlike, womb-like,
Mm.
because that is a belief, because it's what we experience. It's not what we.
Yes. Yes. That's so beautiful. And as you said that, I was reminded of, the experience of the dark night of the soul, where there's this separation of God. Um, and that's a whole rabbit trail, and I'd be curious to know your thoughts on that. But I have heard that described, that darkness, that absence, also as a womb like experience, like being held in this like cave-like um, darkness that at first is scary, but then becomes this like rebirth of connectedness and true selfness with God. Yeah.
Which then takes me to these images of Christ going into a cave for a few
Yeah.
days
Yeah.
during his big transformation.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, one of the things that I love, and I read about this in my book, is the word compassion and the word
Yes.
actually they carry the same root word.
Oh, that
So
is stunning.
yeah, so rachum and rachamim, that rech
Oh,
is the same
yes.
root. So
Oh,
whenever you read, a rabbi taught me this a couple years ago.
yeah.
Whenever you read Christ had compassion on them, you can read
Oh,
as, or God had compassion. You
yes.
read it as God is re-wombing them back into
Wow.
God.
Yep. Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden, God becomes the great mother that
Oh,
has always nurtured us, has always
yes.
brought us back to a safe place.
Brack. Yes. Back to life.
Hmm. Yes. And so
Yeah.
compassion being this great motivator is always like, yeah, bringing people back into that safety, that place where you don't
Mm,
have to prove anything. And I think that's what I was hoping
Yes.
spiritual direction space might be, is one where there's nothing to prove. You don't have to be right or wrong. You're just seen and loved.
Yeah.
You're looked at in the same way
Yes.
God would look at you. You don't got to prove.
Mm,
You just got to exist, and you already
mm,
part of the family.
mm. I love that.
Which, back to the other question,
Yeah.
people can say you're part of the family with our words all we want. But it's actually not until somebody screws up and they're welcomed back in that it's experienced.
Hmm.
We could say God loves me all I want, but until I allow myself to truly be loved, I won't know. And to me, that's what it means to believe something, is to
Yes.
vulnerably submit my body and my story to actually experience it.
Yes.
One thing you've mentioned when we were talking before the podcast, and in some of the notes I have, is
Yeah.
I like to talk about intuition. You talk about intuition,
Mm. Yes.
and in my spiritual realm, you know,
Yeah.
we're often taught the heart is deceitful. You
Oh,
can't, you're don't, and yet then I'm an oblate at a Benedictine monastery, and
yeah.
Saint Benedict in contradiction says, listen with the ear of your heart. He said,
Mm. Mm.
we live in a world, especially in some of our spiritualities, that is so anti that. Our intuition,
Yes.
heart, we
Yes.
will speak into that, just as you perceive that. And why is intuition something you're passionate about? What does it look like to follow our intuition? Why is that good
Mm.
and or bad, I suppose? But I think I know where you're headed. So, um, yeah,
I
what?
am so grateful you brought that up. That is one of my favorite Bible verses that has been flipped on its head for me. Um, yes, that how often do we hear, nope, don't listen to your heart. It's wicked and deceitful. Who can trust it? And like that, I'm not sure that's right because Jesus lives in my heart and and in spiritual direction and all these years, right? Like we go inward and we listen and we're like mysteriously meeting with Jesus, with our Creator from some mysterious place within. And every time it's pretty beautiful in there, right? Like it is really peaceful. And I love it there. I want to keep going back. One of my good friends, um, pastor, spiritual director, I was asking him about that, and he pointed me to a Jewish word study of that, and it talks about how a perhaps more like rooted definition of that verse, right, is that our heart is vulnerable. And what is it? Vulnerable and deep, and who can like fathom it? I wish I had it pulled up, but I just remember it's vulnerable. And the image it brings to me is an
Quav,
ocean. What is it?
AQOV, I believe,
Okay.
quav, deep and unwinding, or deep
Deep and
and winding,
unwinding and winding.
winding, unknowable. Yeah, exactly.
Unknowable. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes. And so it's this beautiful place that like I think, we're called to discover and figure out how God meets us there. And I've been studying intuition for the last like year or so and strengthening that. And it's been something that I don't talk about a lot because I'm like, people are gonna think I'm crazy. Like I don't want to be labeled cuckoo, whatever. And it has been such a sacred time of learning to trust those whispers that I hear in my heart and trust the way my body responds to new experiences and encounters. And and it only strengthens my relationship with God and with Jesus.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I mean honestly, if I think it's like one of the biggest like misinterpretations
Yes.
that has done great damage because it's confusing. Like when we go to listen in prayer and figure out like what's God's voice, what is God telling me to do? what is like this true version of myself rooted in Christ? What would that person look like going forward? You know, and like how do we make sense of all these voices? Maybe it's just me. Hopefully I'm not the only one with all these voices and ideas in my head. Um, but yeah, that's like the great adventure of life now for me is like trying to like decipher and discern God in all of that. And that to me that's like very aligned with intuition, right? Yeah, how do you think of intuition?
Mm-hmm, hmm. Yeah, being Benedictine, I would say listening with the ear of my heart.
Yes.
And I would say being Benedictine, I think as well, right? Right, like the kind of core piece of like the word obey, for what it's worth,
Mm.
the root of obey is also to listen. So the word obedience
Oh,
has so much
yeah.
more to do with listening than it actually
Yes.
have to do with like do this or do that. So to me,
Yes.
intuition is really hearing my heart
Oh,
and
yes.
acting from that place.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
It's tender, it's not forced.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
but it's being magnetized toward
Wow.
where like because I do think some of
Oh,
us contemplatives can stay stuck at the monastery. We can stay stuck in silence.
yes. Yes.
And like Rohr often says the most important word of his spiritual center is the word and action and contemplation.
Yep.
And so I think for me, intuition is saying not only do I hear this with my heart, but I also
Yes.
move toward it.
Yes.
And that intuition isn't much if I just have these thoughts, but that I can
Yes.
hear the right thing and then do
Yes.
something with it.
Yes.
So faith without works is dead, that kind of thing. Not
Yep.
that we have to do things to be loved, but that we do these things out of love. And
Yes.
so I think intuition is learning on, and you voices, we all have tons of voices. Like that's, of course, for me, very practically, one of the things I do is, and I do this a lot with my clients, is learning to personify the different voices because it just makes it very
Oh,
so
yeah.
the voice of my heart. And what does this
Yeah. Yeah.
is this just a version of my angry uncle or that
Yeah.
pastor? Or is
Yeah.
Brene Brown sometimes calls them her gremlins? Like which voice is
Yep.
this?
Yep.
And then
Yep.
the more that I can, so for me, developing a practice of intuition is learning what that voice actually sounds like and then
Yes.
courage to act on it.
Yes.
And that's usually risky. I think
Yes.
intuition sees beyond the physical realm. And so
Yes.
oftentimes, like, that's why following our intuition, I think, Kate, often leads to miracles because
Yes.
intuition comes from a divine place. So it sees
Yes.
beyond the physical realm. And so
Yep.
when we follow our intuition, that's where we see miracles in our physical body,
Yes.
in our finances, in our relationships and love. But again, it does require a magnetization toward the thing. So that's
Yes.
really um how I do
Yes.
that.
That's beautiful.
As you've studied this, then let's continue
Yeah.
to get into the questions people would ask is
Yeah.
so then what about the flesh? And for you, and we can go back and forth, I can share what I think if you want, but what would that mean then, the flesh and this like nasty thing that people talk about when they refer to the flesh and how bad it
Oh.
is and you know like
Oh,
'cause
sure.
that's a language that also is often in this space. So I'm trying to resist my flesh and I'm trying to how do you perceive that or interpret some of that language again that our heart or our bodies are bad and we've got to resist them. What does that look like for you in your experience as a guide and in your own story?
That's a good question. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times I would think of the ego. That's kind of how that thinking about the ego and the true self was really helpful for me and understanding that. Um, but I also have learned to like love my ego, you know, and like befriend it. I think it's really helpful to know what's going on there. Um, I mean, I like to make friends with all parts of me.
Yeah.
That feels like the most welcoming. Um, but okay, in terms of flesh, I mean, there's definitely you know, like I don't know. I went through a stage of like spiritual warfare, being like, oh, that was, growing up Christian. That was talked about a lot. And then I kind of like poo-pooed it. And I'm like, no, that is very real. Um, so that's a whole rabbit trail. But I do think that there is an element of that. But the flesh, I mean, that's a hard one because my initial reaction is, oh, the flesh is beautiful, the body's beautiful. That's probably confusing. But that's just how I see things now. But yeah, I mean, I think anything that I think of the ego mainly and like what would inflate life draining ways in myself, my body, my family, and people around me. I think that's like the best way I can think about it is like
I
life-giving,
know.
life-draining.
And I would say, right, like, okay, if that's the case, right, like the heart,
Yeah.
wish if it
Yeah.
comes from the heart, that's at the
Yeah.
core.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
ego and the flesh is the most outer level of our
Yeah.
person.
Yes.
And so of course, like I don't want to operate from the outside. I'm not
Yes.
operate from the most. I want to operate from the heart. And so whenever
Yes.
I don't want to operate from the flesh. It's not
Yes.
separate from my body. It's
Yes.
I don't want to operate from the surface level. I want to operate.
Yes.
One of the
Yes.
things that I love in this, Kate, is in Genesis.
Yeah.
Adam and Eve can't be vulnerable anymore. When their
Yeah.
shame has overcome them, they literally put animal flesh over their bodies.
Yes.
Shame. And to me, that's what I feel like flesh
Mm-hmm.
is when our vulnerable, truest self isn't free to
Mm.
operate and we act out of
Mm.
shame. That's operating.
Mm. Oh, yeah. Yes. And when you say that, that made me think of also, I think it's fear. I think a lot of it is fear. And I'm reminded of Caroline Oak's book, Practice the Pause. And she talks a lot about like when we're in fight or flight versus when we're coming from the place of peace and compassion and curiosity and like fruits of the spirit, right? And when we're in, oh, I'm actually really obsessed with her work, but I do think a lot of that flesh is that fight or flight. Um, and whenever I'm activated by fear. And interestingly enough, like when I talk about nutrient depletion, for me, a lot of my intense fear was associated when I started healing my adrenal gland and supporting my adrenals. The adrenal gland is connected with fear and anxiety and that fight or flight activation, which how often in this day and age are we, I'll talk for myself, going from one thing, I'm doom scrolling, I'm like rushing off, I'm late to this thing or that, and I'm activating that fight or flight. And when we are in our parasympathetic, like activating the parasympathetic part of our nervous system, which is activated when we are in prayer, we literally, there's scientific evidence that Caroline Oakes talks about where we are decreasing the area in our brain that's associated with fight or flight. Like, I think that's the coolest thing ever. And we're increasing the more, like, hell, I forget what the science is there, but the really good parts of our brain that allow us to, like, be in this peace. And so to me, that's part of the flesh too. I think is like genuine, like fear, love, you know?
Yes. Yes. Um, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I would love to, if we could touch on just that a little bit. And, I do a lot of work. One of my little side quests, we talk about lots of certifications and stuff. People like,
Yeah, yeah.
'cause I've worked with Wim Hof for the last couple of years, and I have
Yes.
Hof certification.
Yes. Yes.
And part of why we do cold exposure every day is
Yes.
teaching us to
Yes, that's
expose ourselves
right.
to radical stress,
Yes.
to then enter into that parasympathetic nervous
Wow. Right, right,
state.
right.
So, for example, every day I get into the cold and I think I'm going to die.
Do you every day?
Okay.
That's amazing.
My wife makes me at this point because she can tell when I'm not, you know,
You're
I'm,
incredible. Like, do you have a
I'm
cold plunge at your house?
yeah, for sure.
That's so cool.
It's a big part of the life. but the
Yeah.
point there is that we
Yes.
practice entering into parasympathetic,
Yes. Yes.
and that I
Yes.
can do that with my mind and my breath.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and so in that, and you talking about nutrient depletion, and you even mentioned that in parallel with postpartum.
Yep.
Um, would you be willing to just speak into as we begin to wrap up? Although maybe this will just have to be a whole nother podcast, but the way in which some of these physical things have integrated with your spirituality. So, talking about
Yes.
postpartum depression and that experience,
Yes.
it's not
Yes.
just I'm leading the cart before the horse, but there has to be a physical integration into our life, which I
Yes.
think in the new spirituality movement,
Yes.
it makes me think I was sitting with a Buddhist monk in an interfaith, actually, he was in Minnesota in an
Oh,
interfaith
cool.
dialogue.
Yes.
He told me, he said, Tyler, I love Christians. And
Hmm.
you're really good at building communities. You're really
Hmm.
good at taking care of the poor. But he said,
Hmm.
I don't understand why you are so unhealthy.
Oh,
And Christians don't take care of their bodies.
yeah.
And he's like, there's no part by and large of your practice that integrates the body. There's no
Yeah.
talk about food really. There's no
Yeah.
physical. So, anyways, you've talked about nutrients, the parasympathetic
Yes.
system, your
Yes.
adrenal gland. Man, we'll do another podcast. But
Yeah.
how has the physical world, your body,
Yeah.
nutrients,
Yes.
integrated with your spiritual life? And
Yeah.
honestly, especially in your feminine spirituality,
Hmm.
is in which women are just so in tune naturally with their bodies
Hmm.
in ways that are just so helpful for us to know, i.e.,
Hmm.
back to
Yeah.
this and compassion. Uh, yeah, I know I'm just
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it's my life. It's like what I love studying and practicing every day. When I first started supporting my adrenal gland with, see your doctor, but, when I with herbs specific to my adrenals, my brain woke back up. And I was like, "Oh, here I am. I've been gone for a while and I'm back online." And I was so in fight or flight from like the constant coffee to the like these quick fixes and the way that I was nourishing and feeding my body to like never getting sleep with my kids. Uh, the majority of us are in adrenal fatigue is the reality of it, and it doesn't get enough
Say
love.
what that is really quick.
Uh, oh gosh, I've studied regenerative health, but I'm certainly not an expert of it. But our adrenal glands, I my they're in
As you
our body. They help.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they're crucial in like our hormones and even like helping with digesting food and our brain chemistry. And for me, I understand things like on more of an energetic level. That's just kind of how God made me. And um, they, when I supported them, I noticed a significant shift in the way that I was reactionary, and like in this fight or flight fear state. So, in addition to that, like I felt so much better. And then I wanted to study regenerative health simply because one of my favorite teachers was offering this amazing course. And in that study, we moved through like all of these deep herbal cleanses and nourishing our body at the same time. And I just like we would nourish the, okay, so the gut can be associated with holding on to things, right? The liver with anger, kidneys, I think that one's forgiveness. The lungs can be like being seen. So as I was like nourishing these different glands and organs within my body, like first the crud would come to the surface, like all this anger at times it felt like generational anger, right? Like coming up and it might sound bizarre, but that was the experience, like this generational anger coming up and out of me to be released. And afterward would just feel lighter physically in my body. And uh yeah, that that's where I'm like, do I go there? But I will just say very briefly, there was a morning of I'd been doing all of this cleansing. And you know how sometimes like you wake up and you hear something, like it's like a thought that was maybe implanted and you're like woken up by it.
Mm.
And I just heard like we see what we reflect and we reflect what we see. And I remember like waking up and I just felt my being more clear. And it was almost as if, at risk of sounding bizarre, forgive me if your listeners think I'm crazy, like I could almost see my light body,
Yes.
and the way the internal light was moving through my skin. And it stopped me in my tracks. And it was like, this was my invitation to continually examine my internal world in the way it was impacting my external world. And to notice how I see God in the way that impacts my heart and the way that shines out. And it's like this continual, and Claire from like St. Francis of Assisi talks about this too, like, the mirror and the way we're called to continually cleanse. And it just felt like everything's different now.
Yes.
Like my life is new. And it truly felt like a rebirth in many ways of like inviting more light and heaven in here and just continually cleansing and through grace, like, I don't know, not to get like too, maybe I live in the ethereal
Uh,
quite a bit, but
Rob Bell often says there's woo and then there's woo woo, but we always need a proper amount of woo. And
I'll bring the proper amount of woo.
I
I'll bring a
need
little woo.
I need more woo.
I will bring you woo any day. Yes, that's where I live a lot of the
A
time.
woo friendly.
A woo friendly time.
Um,
Yeah.
but in really though, what you're seeing here, Kate, is that you're tending to your physical body awoke a
Yes.
spiritual reality
Yes.
would not have otherwise happened.
Yes, and that's the hilarious thing is that it is woo-woo, but the hilariousness of it all is that it started from the most practical place of literally tending to my body and making sure that every organ and gland was getting the nutrients I needed, you
There's
know?
the couple things, and then we'll start to really wrap up. The great lie of any spiritual teacher will wrap it up. But one of the practices I incorporated in my healing a while ago was when I would do breath work and I would go into these deep
Mm,
meditative states
yes.
where like I wouldn't breathe. Sometimes I've been in these places where I don't breathe for 4 and 5 minutes. But
Really?
but the
Whoa.
crazy thing is I would feel in my body certain things. And so what I started doing was getting massages after that because I would feel traumas or stories.
Yes, yes, yes,
So
yes,
then we
yes.
would go work it out
Yes. Yes. Yep.
in
Yep.
the, so I would tell the masseuse, yo, like we're gonna work on my
Yep.
shoulders or my whatever,
Yes. Yes.
and connecting those and really working them out of my body. I would say the
Yes.
thing is I don't try not to talk about this too much because nothing is more annoying than a vegan who tells you that they're vegan. But I went
Are you
vegan.
a vegan?
Yeah.
Me too.
Oh, sweet. Love it.
Yeah. So
But
you
like,
can tell me all day. We can tell each other.
but it was mostly for the physical, and I had no idea
Yeah,
the
same.
ways in which it awoke my spiritual life.
Yeah.
But in a similar way, tending to
Yeah.
our physical bodies does so
Yeah.
awaken the
It's
other.
so, and that's again like bringing you back. That's the experience of God being good.
Yeah,
It's like that's the belief because I know it through my cells now,
bingo.
not because it's something I tell myself. Yeah. Yeah.
There's going to be a part two, 1,000%.
Yay, yes, yes. I
Yeah.
know. I'm like you. I need to come take a breathwork class of yours. And do you teach cold therapy?
Yep.
Because I have a big fear that I would benefit, I think, from conquering.
Yeah, we could do it. Next time I come to
Yeah.
Minnesota, we'll do it.
Minnesota.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. Yeah, I
Yeah.
absolutely do. Yeah, the cold has changed my life. One of the ways, Kate, I like to end this though is with a practice I do with a lot of my
Mm,
clients, I've been doing with my guests on the podcast, because I think it really is impactful. Um,
yeah.
would you be willing to share with us some of the things, Kate, that you just adore about yourself?
Oh,
What are some things that Kate King loves about Kate King?
wow. That is beautiful and hard and vulnerable. I love my connection with God. I love sitting in silence, and I love that about me. I do. Like, um, I love my weirdness when I let it out. I love the way I see animals. Like I have this actually two white squirrels that live in my yard. And I love that I see that because it's like just God encouragement to me. Am I on the right path? Is that what we do? Is that how this goes?
You love it about you, then you're doing it right.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. And I do love my woo-woo. It like makes life fun for me, you know?
Yes.
So I do think part of my growth journey is trying to feel safe and being seen in that. Um,
Yes.
so thank you for offering a safe space in that.
Yeah, we're going more woo-woo next time. So,
I would love that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kate, where can people find your work? You mentioned writing or just to follow what you do and what you're about, or you
Yeah.
don't have to share any of that if you don't want. But yeah, where can people connect with you and support you?
Yeah. Thanks. At kateking.author on Instagram and then Jesus Energy on Substack. I think that's what it is.
Sounds right.
Yeah, yeah, Jesus Energy podcast, which I'm excited to have you on soon.
Sounds great. I am
Yeah,
pumped about that as
yeah.
well.
Or
Now,
in Minnesota. Just kidding.
um, great. And I'll link all that below, of course, in the podcast. Kate, thank you so much for being here. Friends, like usual, if this blessed you in any way, feel free to share it with your people, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. But this has been the Tyler Hill Podcast, and we'll see you next week.